Hi class, this is lesson 23, adding and subtracting mixed numbers, and this is course 2. So let's get started. I have quite a bit of information for you to write down first. It's going to be a box that looks like this. Just has some rules for adding and subtracting mixed numbers. So we'll go over this. You'll probably have to pause the video to write it all down. But first, you must have common denominators. So make it happen if you don't. And we went over that in lesson 9, making equivalent fractions. And that's really pretty simple. You just go back over that lesson, but multiply by a fraction that looks that is 1, but like 4 over 4 or 2 over 2 or 10 over 10, whatever it needs to be to get that common denominator. The second step would be to add or subtract the fraction part, then add or subtract the whole numbers. And third, when you have mixed numbers and you're subtracting, you may need to rename the mixed number so that you can borrow to have enough of the fractional parts to subtract. And we'll do an example like that. So what you need to do is set up a small little chart on your page there so that you have room for an example with the same denominator and room for an example with a different denominator. And we are going to do 2 examples on each. Okay, so here's example 1. If we have 2 3/4 and we add 4 3/4, 4, that line is not cooperating with me, 4 3/4. Okay, so we're going to add. We're going to do an addition and then a subtraction. Okay, I have the same denominator, 4 and 4, so I'm going to add the fraction parts first. And remember, when you add fractions, you add the numerators, so we'd have 6, and then we keep the denominators, so we'd have 4ths. Add the whole number part, 4 plus 2 is 6. So I have 6 6/4. Okay, what's wrong with 6/4? It's improper, so I'm just going to draw an arrow up over here. So I need to divide that. Okay, so 4 goes outside, 6 goes in the box, and I end up with 1 2/4. Okay, 1 2/4. Alright, so this ends up being 6 plus, it was that whole number part, right? 6, we didn't get rid of that. We have 6 plus 1 2/4, which gives us 7 2/4, and we need to divide that by 2, so we end up with 7 1/2. That's our final answer there. Let's see, I'm going to change pen colors here. I'm going to go green, and we're going to do example number 2 with the same denominator, but we're going to subtract. Okay, if I have, let's say we have 5 1/2, and we subtract from that 4 1/2. Okay, again, denominators are the same, so subtract the numerators. 1 minus 1 is 0. Keep the denominators, 2, so 2 will be there. I'm going to look back up here. What do I do? Second, add or subtract the fraction part. We did that. Then add or subtract the whole number. So I need to take 5 minus 4 and get 1. Now, when you have no parts, you don't have any parts, and you don't have to draw that arrow. When you have no fractional parts, then don't write the fraction. Okay, when that numerator is 0, ignore that fraction altogether, because that's just 0, and 1 plus 0 is just 1. Okay, now let's do some with different denominators. Here's example 1. Again, we're going to add once and then subtract. So if I have 4 1/4, and I want to add to it 3 2/3. Okay, notice the denominators are different. So we have to figure out what the LCD, or least common denominator, is. And 4 and 3. So if I were to count these out, if I went 4, 8, 12, 16, and then I went by threes, and I went 3, 6, 9, 12. Well, there I go. Okay, I know my denominator needs to be 12. So I need to multiply this fraction by a fraction so that I get a 12 in the denominator. So I get 4 and something 12s. Okay, well, what will that need to be? 4 times what gives me 12? That would be a 3. So I would end up with 1 times 3 is 3. Similarly down here, what would I multiply 3 by to get a fraction with a 3 and something 12s? Well, 3 times 4 is 12, so it would be 4 fourths. 2 times 4 is 8. And now, since I have common denominators, I am ready to add. So 3 plus 8 is 11. Remember, you keep the denominator when you add. 4 plus 3, the whole number part, is 7. 11 twelfths is fine. I don't need to do any reducing or simplifying, so we're good there. Okay, I'll go back to the green pen. Hopefully you can see that okay. If not, give me some feedback. Example 2, we're going to do subtraction, so 6 and 1/2 minus 2 and 1/5. Okay, I need to know what my denominator is going to be. Right now it's a 2 and a 5. If I went over here and went 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and I counted by 5s, I'd go 5, 10, and I can tell that my common denominator needs to be 10. So what fraction do I multiply to get a 10 here? It would be 5/5. And this one to get a 10 would be 2 2s. Okay, so let's see here. My whole number stays the same, 6. But 1 times 5 is 5. And 2 times 5 is 10. This fraction, the whole number stays the same, 2. But the fraction numerator, 1 times 2 is 2. Denominator is going to be 10. And remember that this is subtraction. Subtract the fractional components. 5 minus 2 is 3. Denominator stays the same. 6 minus 2 is 4. So I have 4 and 3/10. 3 and 10 have no factors in common other than 1, so I know that I'm good. Okay. Couple more examples. When you have to borrow, okay, so I told you that you might need to subtract with renaming or borrowing. So let's do a subtraction problem here. I have 6 and 1/9, and I want to subtract from that 2 and 2/3. Okay? Now, first thing, do I have common denominators? No. Okay, so what will my common denominator be? Hopefully you can recognize that 3 will go into 9, so 9 needs to be my common denominator. So this one's not going to change at all, but this one, the second one, I'm going to need to multiply by 3/3 so that I get 9 as my denominator. So I'm just going to stretch that out over there and say 6 and 1/9, and then this would be minus 2, the whole number won't change. 2 times 3 is 6, and 3 times 3 is 9. So I have 6 and 1/9 minus 2 and 6/9. Okay, now I cannot subtract 6 from 1, and so I would need to borrow. So I'm going to write a note here, and you may want to do the same, but we are going to borrow 1 from the 6, but we are going to write it as however many makes a whole. So this is 9 pieces, so it would be 9 out of 9. Borrow 1 is 9/9 from the 6. Okay. So what we had was 6 and 1/9, right? I'm going to go down here. Hopefully you can stretch it out. Otherwise, do what makes sense on your paper. So we had 6 and 1/9. And we're going to borrow. So that borrowing looks like this. 5. And we're going to borrow 1. But really that's plus 9/9. Okay, 9/9 is 1. So we did borrow 1. But we need it in fractional units. Okay, so that becomes 5. And 9 plus 1 is 10 with a denominator of 9. Now I can continue my problem. Minus 2 and 6/9. 10 minus 6, 4. 9, 9. 9 stays the same. 5 minus 2, 3. Look at this. Do 4 and 9 have any common factors other than 1? No, they don't. Done. One other type of problem. You might see problems like this. 100% minus 66 and 2/3%. Okay, this is fine. We can still do this subtraction. We have a whole number and we're subtracting a whole number with a fractional component. Because it's percent, that's fine. We'll just tack the percent on at the end. So we're going to do the same thing. I would write it like this though. 100% minus the 66. I think I'm going to fix that. Bear with me here for a second. I don't want that percent there yet. I want the percent to be over just a little bit. Okay. So, thank you very much. So we're going to put the percent sign over here. And this is 66 and 2/3%. Okay. Again, I need to borrow because I cannot subtract 2/3 from nothing. There is nothing there, right? If I were to represent that, it would be 0/3. There aren't any. So I need to borrow 1 as 3/3. Now, as you're doing this part of the problem, you won't need to write that down. You won't need to write, I'm borrowing 1 as 3/3 on your paper. But you need to remember that that's what you're doing, because if you don't, you'll make a mistake. So it's 100 and 0/3. And when we borrow, that becomes 99, and then we're going to add 3/3. So we end up with 99 and 3/3, and remember it was percent, minus the 66 and 2/3%, giving us 1/3. The percent sign stays there, and 99 minus 66 is 33. So 33 and 1/3%. Okay, that's all I have for you today. This was lesson 23. Do not do the 1 through 30 immediately after this lesson. I think you'll have a worksheet, but we'll see you in class. So, see you then.